Hey there, health enthusiasts. Welcome back to Body Basics. Today we're diving into something that'll blow your mind, quite literally. Did you know there's a type of disease with no cure that literally turns the brain into a sponge? And no, I'm not talking about what happens when you binge watch cat videos all night. These mysterious killers are called prion diseases, and they're unlike anything else in medicine. They're rare, they're fatal, and they're completely fascinating. By the end of this video, you'll understand how these bizarre diseases work, the different types that exist, how they spread, and what scientists are doing to fight them. Trust me, this is one video that'll stick in your brain. Pun absolutely intended. But before we dive in, do me a quick favor, hit that like button and subscribe if you want to learn more about the wild world of medical science. Your support helps us keep making these videos, and believe me, we've got some mind-bending topics coming up. Now let's talk about what exactly a prion is. Forget everything you know about typical infectious diseases. Prions aren't bacteria, they're not viruses, and they're not parasites. They're actually proteins gone rogue. You know how in every zombie movie, there's always that one person who starts the apocalypse? Well, in the protein world, that's basically what a prion is. Here's the wild part. These proteins normally exist in our brains, doing their regular protein jobs, minding their own business. But sometimes one of them decides to be a rebel and folds itself into the wrong shape. Now this misfolded protein becomes like that one friend who always convinces everyone to make bad decisions. It starts touching other normal proteins and convinces them to misfold too. Before you know it, you've got a chain reaction of protein peer pressure going on in your brain. What makes prions truly unique in the world of infectious agents is that they don't have any genetic material. No DNA, no RNA, nothing. It's like they're biological rebels who tore up the rulebook. Scientists were so confused when they first discovered this that it took years for anyone to believe it was possible. The researcher who figured it out, Stanley Prions, was actually laughed at by his colleagues. Who's laughing now? Well, he is probably with his Nobel Prize. Let's talk about what these misfolded troublemakers actually do to your brain. Imagine your brain is like a perfect piece of memory foam. Now imagine that someone started poking holes in it until it looked more like Swiss cheese. That's basically what prions do. They create tiny holes throughout your brain tissue, giving it a sponge-like appearance under the microscope. And just like a sponge with too many holes wouldn't be very good at holding water, a brain with too many holes isn't very good at, well, being a brain. This damage leads to a cascade of devastating symptoms. It starts subtly. Maybe you're a bit forgetful, or your movements seem slightly off. Then your personality might change. Suddenly, you're not quite yourself anymore. Your coordination gets worse, and you might develop involuntary movements. It's like your brain is slowly losing its ability to be a brain, piece by piece. Eventually, these symptoms progress to severe dementia, loss of all motor control, and ultimately, coma and death. Now let's explore the various types of prion diseases, and trust me, they're all equally fascinating and terrifying. The most common one in humans is Creutzfeldt-Jakob Disease, or CJD. And if you think the name is a mouthful, wait till you hear about its variants. Sporadic CJD is the most common form, affecting about 1 in a million people each year. It's like winning the worst lottery ever. It just happens randomly, usually in people over 60. Then there's inherited CJD, which runs in families due to a genetic mutation. It's like getting a really terrible family heirloom that nobody wanted. But perhaps the most famous form is variant CJD, which came from eating beef infected with mad cow disease. Remember the huge mad cow disease panic in the UK during the 1990s? That wasn't just media hysteria. It was a legitimate public health crisis. Imagine being told that your hamburger could literally make your brain turn to Swiss cheese. Not exactly what you want to hear at a BBQ. Speaking of unusual ways to get a prion disease, let me tell you about Kuru. This disease was discovered in the forepeople of Papua New Guinea, and it's got a pretty dark origin story. It spread through their practice of ritualistic cannibalism, specifically eating the brains of deceased family members as a sign of respect. The women and children were primarily affected because they were given the brain tissue to eat while the men got the muscle meat. When this practice was stopped, Kuru largely disappeared, though cases continued to appear for years afterward due to Prion's long incubation period. Then there's fatal familial insomnia, which might be the scariest prion disease of all. Imagine not being able to sleep at all. Not just one bad night, but progressively losing your ability to sleep until your body and mind completely break down. People with this inherited condition first develop mild insomnia that gradually worsens until they can't sleep at all. They develop hallucinations, lose weight, and eventually die from this complete sleep deprivation. It's like the worst case of insomnia you could possibly imagine, multiplied by 1,000. In the animal kingdom, prion diseases are just as devastating. Mad cow disease, officially called bovine spongiform encephalopathy, caused the culling of millions of cattle in the UK. Chronic wasting disease affects deer, elk, and moose, earning the nickname zombie deer disease because infected animals become listless and confused before dying. It's spreading through wildlife populations in North America right now, and scientists are worried about its potential to jump to humans. Now let's talk about how these diseases spread and why they're so hard to stop. Unlike other pathogens, prions are virtually indestructible. You can boil them, freeze them, douse them in disinfectant. They don't care. They're like the titanium of the infectious disease world. Normal sterilization procedures that kill bacteria and viruses don't even faze them. This makes them particularly problematic in medical settings. Surgical instruments used on someone with a prion disease need special sterilization procedures, and in some cases, they're just destroyed because it's not worth the risk. Prions can stick around on surfaces for years, just waiting for their next victim. It's like having the world's most persistent, uninvited house guest. The primary ways humans get prion diseases are through inheritance, thanks genetics, spontaneous bad luck, when proteins randomly misfold, or exposure to infected tissue. This last one is particularly important because prions tend to concentrate in neural tissue. That's why eating infected brain matter is especially risky. So why can't we treat these diseases? Well, remember how I said prions are just misfolded proteins? That's part of the problem. They're not alive, so you can't kill them with antibiotics. They don't have genetic material, so antiviral drugs don't work. It's like trying to fix a paper airplane by giving it cold medicine. It just doesn't make sense. But scientists aren't giving up. Current research is looking at several promising approaches. Some researchers are developing antibodies that could potentially tag prions for destruction by the immune system. Others are working on compounds that could stabilize normal proteins and prevent them from misfolding in the first place. There's even research into gene therapy that could help people with inherited prion diseases. When it comes to prevention, public health measures are our best defense. Countries have strict regulations about animal feed to prevent mad cow disease. Blood donations are screened to prevent prion transmission. And medical facilities have special protocols for handling instruments used on high-risk patients. On a personal level, the risk of getting a prion disease is extremely low for most people. Unless you have a family history or are planning to eat some questionable brain tissue, please don't. You probably don't need to worry too much. But it's still fascinating to understand these bizarre diseases and the challenges they present to medical science. So there you have it. Everything you need to know about prion diseases in 15 minutes. From misfolded proteins to Swiss cheese brains, from cannibalism to mad cows, these diseases represent some of the strangest and most challenging conditions in all of medicine. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Body Basics. Leave a comment below letting me know what medical mystery you'd like me to explore next. And remember, while prion diseases might be rare, understanding them helps us understand how complex and fascinating our brains really are. Stay healthy, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video. And hey, maybe think twice before accepting any offers of brain tissue at your next dinner party. Just saying.